Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to round number 6 of our June 1v1 tournament. This time we are going to be featuring Popsursocks and Abyss, a couple of players we have not seen yet. And they've got, once again, a bit of a different map from what we're used to. There's not a lot of silicon on it, and we've seen a couple like that this game. Silicon's perhaps actually most awkward on this map. This is going to be a little bit weird, especially with these warehouses at the neutral, but with glass starting at 40, who knows exactly how that's going to pan out. What I'm really concerned about is this right here, and frankly, I would have already founded this game. Bam, robot, right there, get it done. Just take some iron, take some aluminum, and that is what Popsursocks is going to get done. Got a little bit of aluminum gathered up, and he is just going to take, I kind of like this distribution. He's actually taken 3 tiles here, a double aluminum and a low iron, and then another low iron. And then a final low iron in order to put a steel mill on it. So this mid aluminum low iron though, that's a pretty huge tile. Look at how many resources he's getting out of just that tile. 3.75 resources from that alone. That is truly ridiculous with just the one adjacency bonus going. The other metal mine not producing too much, but he should be okay for the time being. He's got enough iron coming in to get down 3 steel mills at least, and he can always add to it or adjust things around as he needs to. Abyss, on the other hand, he has elected to go for Scavenger. I'm a little concerned about his particular found location because he has managed to shove himself up against this cliff face here. So if Black Market is getting turned on him, it could be pretty effective because he'll have to keep his production a little bit closer together. He's got a little open area, like he can expand out here, he can expand this way, he can expand this way. So he may have enough. Yeah, he's only got like the 1 tile down here. So he's got like here, here, maybe up here. He's going to be a little cramped. I'm a little concerned about this for Abyss as he moves forward. Other than that, though, he's got high aluminum. That's nice. He's got low carbon with high carbon adjacency. That's not too bad. It looks like he's focused on being able to get this triangle later rather than taking the large amount of carbon now. Just an interesting thing to note. That's why we've got these two. Is probably for this triangle. Now, this is a bit of a mistake. If you're wanting to guarantee the triangle late and not take the medium right away, then what you do is you take this tile and then you take this tile. Because this tile has 2 potential adjacencies coming in. This tile only has the 1 adjacency potential. So if this gets like taken by an opponent, he takes these 2 perhaps, which he's more likely to do in order to cut you off and be a pain, then you're in less of a good spot. But if you take these 2, your opponent doesn't want this tile at all because it has no adjacency, and you have both of these available to you for the future. It's a small thing, but that kind of small thing can really actually have a huge impact, especially in games with more players, you know, FFAs with 4 to 8 rather than just our little 1v1 situation. That's just an interesting thing to talk about because that kind of small decision doesn't come up all that often, but it is actually important. Now, we had power start off pretty expensive this game, it looks like, and so Abyss has actually already moved into wind turbines very, very quickly. Popsursocks also tried to move into power very quickly with this geothermal plant, but it got dynamited out immediately. He now has a geotherm over it. Abyss likely, however, because of where that Goon Squad is positioned, I imagine that Abyss got the dynamite purchased and used before the Goon had been bought. And so that's just a nice little advantage from founding second, perhaps. From being that scavenger, you're just more inclined toward that black market in general. And that's a nice hit to get early on that geotherm. When you've already got power online yourself, especially. Now, power's not all that expensive, but it does, of course, cost a fair amount of steel to get that geotherm rebuilt. I mean, we're talking like 60 steel, 20 aluminum to rebuild that geotherm. So the steel is the important part. That's a fair bit of money. The Goon Squad he has to use to defend it is a fair bit of money. I just like that nice little hit, that quick little threat from Abyss. From Dynamite in particular, which is a tool that often doesn't come into play until the late game, except against those geotherms. So he's not really losing a whole lot by just bumping up the price on that Dynamite a little bit. Regardless, though, we are going to see Popsursocks go ahead and hit HQ3 first. Not too much of a surprise. Abyss didn't really put into any solid, quick production. I'm concerned about the fact that he went for both double wind turbine and double water pump. You can see that means that he only has this 1 electrolysis reactor here. If he had the pair, then he'd be making a significant amount of money. It would be pretty simple for him to go ahead and push into this glass here. but unfortunately for him, he just doesn't have that fuel production to really push into the glass, and he's struggling quite seriously to push to HQ3. This is another one of those things that seems small, but is actually kind of an important decision, is taking 2 water pumps early. That's a huge investment. If we go ahead and count, we can put this into percentages or, you know, just fractions pretty easily, right? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 claims for Abyss. He's committed a quarter of those claims, 2 out of 8, to water pumps that are doing nothing. They're literally turned off, dead tiles. A quarter of his territory for all that time, dead, doing nothing, quite literally. And that's a really big concern. If instead one of those was water, and one of those was electrolysis reactor, for example, well, his electrolysis reactor was arguably, and I think pretty much definitively, his single strongest tile. So he converts his tile from dead to being the single best type of tile he has, bumps up his production. It probably would have been making about, let's say, 70 to 80 a piece if he had had 2 for the adjacency bonuses. And that would have been absolutely fantastic. He would have been able to push to 3 faster, would have continued to be in a strong position. Just, it's those little things like that can really make a huge difference in the game. You have to be so careful about how you commit these early claims, because they'll have a huge impact on what it is you're able to do for the rest of the game. I like these EMPs dropping down. Both players are into that oxygen and that fuel. And so the EMPs come down. They're both trying to make sure that they're the ones that actually get the benefit. So it's good to see EMPs targeting that resource that both players are trying to make money from. Just a little awkward that it's going to pan out to be basically zero sum, as both players did get EMP'd at the end of the day. That is an expensive spy, but potentially valuable. I'm a little concerned. Abyss wants it. I guess that's okay. Power's already dropped off to the point where it's not going to really do much for him. So he can afford this $14,000 spy. That's expensive, but we're talking about a spy in a game that has holograms, but no spies or network viruses. So this is just going to be the sole tool that you have to help you find those hologrammed buildings. If it weren't for this spy, Abyss would have to operate completely on just his own intuition of, does that look like a hologram? Does it look like it's not a hologram? Can I interpret based on what's going on that this is probably a hologram building? And that's the kind of high-level play that you do expect out of players, but a spy is always going to make it easier. And because Black Market is so important for Abyss that game, despite that being a bit of an expensive spy, it's possible that it'll still pay for itself long-term this game, since Abyss needs to be able to abuse those EMPs and dynamites in particular in order to get something done. A little awkward, by the way, that we do have both pirates and magnetic storms this game. That's pretty uncommon. It is possible, and I actually kind of like it when it happens, but both of these are tools that are used against the blimps, of course, that are flying through the sky. Magnetic storms can also be used to, for example, knock down a ship that is sending out a building. It doesn't get rid of the resources or anything like that, but it does delay the construction. So, for example, if you wanted to really delay Popsursocks from getting his silicon constructed, well, it's taking forever for that ship to fly the quarry construction on out, right? So you just take a magnetic storm, you get 2 per purchase, obviously, and you just hit the ship, and then the ship has to start resending all the way from the robotic headquarters. So you can really delay important buildings with those magnetic storms, whereas pirates, of course, they're just used to steal the resources. And that's less likely to be super important, although you can see that Abyss has kind of opened himself up to pirates, but not really. It's kind of an interesting situation here. You can't actually drop pirates on these cliffs here. You used to be able to, but not anymore. Pirates used to be in the air, so they were very... Actually, did you used to be able to? Pirates had awkward rules before, but pirates used to be in the air, so you could kind of position them in slightly more interesting ways. These days, they are definitively attached to the ground, and so you have to be able to have an actual spot to put them on. So despite the fact that these farms look pretty vulnerable, it's not as bad as it may appear, because Popsursocks literally can't put pirates on this tile to intercept this food as it's coming through. Now, he could still drop pirates on this tile, and they'll probably catch some of the food. And unfortunately for Abyss, there's really no way for him to put a stop to that other than to build on top of the pirates in order to get rid of them. I would like to see that this game. We haven't seen any pirates yet, and I like the big giant gun that the pirates have. for shooting resources out of ships these days. All right, Abyss is going to go ahead and get upgraded to HQ4, caught up to Popsursocks a little bit. Popsursocks still with a pretty solid lead. As usual, I don't really agree with the patent lab here. Slant drilling is going to be really, really nice for him, though, in terms of just sheer amount of resources he's gathering, because suddenly we've got a high-low for the aluminum and iron here, and then this tile in particular just picked up 2 mediums instead of being a single low. So that's a ridiculous amount of aluminum and iron. Thing is, those resources aren't really all that expensive, so I don't know if it's that big a deal. And similar situation with water over here. Yeah, he's getting a second high water. Not all that ridiculously important, but it is worth pointing out that you've only got like the medium here, the high here, then low, low. Abyss really did a good job of taking the good water early. And so that's why slant drilling suddenly becomes important for Popsursocks. Not only does it give him access to a little better tiles here, it gives him an extra water tile here. That's important. It kind of guarantees also a lot of his tiles against underground nukes. Slant drilling, typically the most effective tool you have in the game against underground nukes, because suddenly, let's say that Popsursocks, well, wants to keep his silicon. Well, both silicon tiles have to get knocked down in order to take it away from Popsursocks, because if he has just one knockdown, slant drilling will simply mine the low tile, and the initial low tile will still keep mining. So he'll still have 2 low tiles. Now, if they both get knocked down to trace, Popsursocks is just out of luck, but that's the way it works. Also, it keeps underground nukes effective against your opponent. So let's say Popsursocks wants to stay aggressive against Abyss with these underground nukes. Underground nukes known to be very effective against scavengers because they work against the carbon, which is the scavenger's base resource, right? They need a lot of carbon. And if they can't pull it out of the ground, well, they have no other way to acquire it. So Popsursocks can potentially, with that slant drilling picked up, he keeps Abyss from getting it and guarantees that he can continue nuking out these carbon tiles or these water tiles if you would like to. The water in particular looking quite vulnerable at this point, as water is over $100 a piece right now, and Abyss really isn't going to want to have to throw down any more water pumps out here. It's even better, by the way, with Pirates and Magnetic Storms available. We did have Pirates drop from Popsursocks. Just on top of that, Silicon, can't argue with that. Silicon, very expensive. Both players eventually wanted to push into that ever-increasing glass that we talked about way back at the start of the game. Optimization Center. This is when Optimization Centers are allowed in 1v1, when they're auctioned off for $12,000 and they have 3 adjacency bonus. This is a huge advantage for Popsursocks. Chemicals aren't very expensive. Glass is very valuable. Silicon's valuable. Steel is valuable. Power is valuable. Plenty of things for Popsursocks to upgrade, and he didn't have to make the investment of a claim or all of the base resources it requires to build an optimization center. That costs $20,000 right now, an optimization center. A claim costs $7,000, and that's a pretty darn cheap claim as it is. So $27,000 to build that instead of $12,000 of debt. That's a huge difference. Absolutely fantastic pickup for Popsursocks. Abyss, you can see he's kind of just dead in the water right now. He's having a lot of trouble actually just making any amount of money. He was trying to make something on the silicon. It got pirated away. He's pirating some back. Pirates, they're pretty cool, right? Big giant gun. Anyway, it is worth noting that you kind of want to sync up your launches when you're up against pirates. It's this is another important thing we can point out. I actually love seeing this. I almost never get to show this way. We've got both ships here were attacked by the Abyss pirates, but only one is being hit by the Popsursocks pirates, and that's because Abyss's launches, this game should be ending pretty soon here, so I want to get this in quickly. Abyss's launches are synced up, and the pirates have an internal cooldown. They can't shoot both of these ships before they get out of range, right? They can only shoot one, and then the second one can get all the way through. Whereas we can see over here, Popsursocks, his launches aren't synced up, so his pirates are going, or his ships are going through one at a time, and the pirates have enough time to reload in order to steal those resources. And so these pirates, you can see, despite the fact that they got planted second, they went away first because they finished their resource stealing first. I know it's not nearly enough to pull Abyss back into this game since Popsursocks HQ5, massive amounts of production, got that slant drilling, been nuking Abyss out all day. Abyss just has literally no cash. But it was still just a nice little thing to point out.